Good afternoon to all of you following this channel. This is Victor Telles, aka Cristero Moderno, and we're going to be following Genesis 27. Excuse my hair. My daughter was playing with my hair earlier today and she messed it up. But we will continue. Hoy esta transmisión será en inglés sobre Génesis 27. Now, for us to begin, today we're going to talk about a blessing that was spoken in the dark, and nothing was ever the same. That's what we are going to find about today. But first, we need to identify that we are reading from the book of Genesis, which in Hebrew is Bereshith, which means in a beginning, not in the beginning, in a beginning. And it was originally written in Hebrew. It is part of the Torah. Remember that the Jewish Old Testament is called the Tanakh, not the Torah. The Torah is just one part of it. The Torah just is 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those are the 5 books of the Torah. The other 2 parts are the Nevi'im, or prophets, or the Ketuvim, which is everything else. Those 3 make up the Tanakh. Now, this was written well over 3,000 years ago, quite possibly close to 4,000 years ago in Hebrew. We need to keep in mind as we read that not all of it is written in a way that we would understand. You see, to understand the Old Testament, we need to know the New Testament. To understand the New Testament, we need to know the Old Testament. To understand the Old Testament, it is important to understand it within its cultural context. And its cultural context would be the Torah. That being said, the Torah then needs a reason as to why it was established, as controversial as it is to us. That's why we have Genesis. Genesis explains to us why God had to establish the law the law of Moses. The law of Moses then establishes a cultural framework from which the Jewish society lived. And then within this cultural framework is the cultural framework where Jesus Christ, our Lord and King, lived. Thus, this is a way it pretty much builds upon itself. But before we go on, before anything else, let's go back and read what's going on. To properly understand this, we need to understand that in patriarchal Hebrew culture, I'm talking about the time of the patriarchs. So the time of the patriarchs was of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. During the time of the patriarchs, the blessing was only given to the firstborn. And the firstborn in Hebrew is not to be understood the way we in Western society understand the firstborn. You see, for us, firstborn means a first out of many. But the Hebrew word for firstborn is Bechor, and it has nothing to do with the birth sequence. You see, anything that is number first, second, third would have as part of its root Rosh. But the Hebrew word for firstborn, Bechor, in no place does it have Rosh. That way, pushing aside the concept of being first. Actually, in Hebrew, the word Bechor means the choice or the prime, the main person. You see, in Hebrew, in patriarchal culture, only one of the kids was the one to inherit the promise. Usually, the first of all of them born, but not necessarily. Once given, it could not be retracted. And this blessing was not transferable. It only applied to the person who received it. Um, Hava, Mrs. Hava, professor of the Hebrew University, tells us that in that culture, blessing was confirmed with the laying of the hands upon the person who was to become the Bechor or receive the firstborn. Anybody who came afterwards missed out on it. So let's continue and see, with that understanding, what happens in this chapter. So bear with me as we start reading. Here we go. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death." That means he knows his time is coming. "Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." This was his last words. She's getting ready to die. Um, but we see that there was a problem. Last couple of chapters ago, we saw that there was some form of favoritism. We saw that when they were born, Esau liked to spend time with his father. So Esau, as we can see here, was his father's favorite. But Jacob, who was more homely, he was a mama's boy. He preferred to stay home with mom. So Jacob ended up being Rebecca's favorite. So now here's the thing. You see, let's think about what's going on here. Esau loved outdoors. We just saw here that he loved to go out and hunt. He was an expert hunter, as a matter of fact. Jacob, on the other hand, he was homely, he was terribly shy, and he was an all and out a mama's boy. So we need to understand that Rebecca's thinking about this. Rebecca saw that that her older son Esau, well, he could pretty much make a life for himself, going out hunting, building tents out of animal skin, making clothes out of animal skin, eating out of the produce of his hunt. But Jacob, well, Jacob was a little more homely. If Esau got the blessing, since only one person received the blessing, if Esau received the blessing, then all of Isaac's inheritance would go to Esau. Jacob would be left with nothing. That's the way the firstborn blessings went about. So Rebecca, aware of this, she doesn't want Jacob, who is not as, we could now say, street smart as his brother Esau. She wanted to ensure that Jacob at least had some of the inheritance, at least, so as to be able to make it once Esau was gone. So she makes a plan that, even though her intentions were good, the way the plan was schemed was not. Let's see what was Rebecca's plan. Now, Rebecca was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebecca said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die.' Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats." Notice this. 2 choice young goats. Here, We use a word in Hebrew. They use the word bahar, the choice, the prime, the top selection. Rebecca is asking Jacob to choose, to bahar two young goats. From this word bahar is where we get the Hebrew word bechor, which, which means a firstborn. So I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. After all, Rebecca's been living with Esau quite a few years now. He knows how to cook her in the best way that he would enjoy it. Then take it to your father to eat so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. You see, Isaac sent Esau out to hunt for some food and prepare some special dish to bring to him so that he could provide the blessing. Rebecca gives Jacob a shortcut since Jacob cannot go out and hunt. We know based on previous chapters that they had um, a lot of goats, camels, sheep, rams, what have you. So she has them take a shortcut instead of going out hunting, which the hunting could take days. Hunting could take long. You would have to wait for the animal to find. You would have to shoot it. You would have to wait until it dies. Then you had to drain it from the blood. Then prepare the meat to cook it, so on and so on and so on. Jacob does not have the experience to do all that. So he has Rebecca tells Jacob, "Bring me to goats, and I'll handle the rest." Quite a shortcut. But Esau's intention was to give it to Esau. Rebecca then instead schemes a plan for Jacob to take the blessing away from Esau for the second time. We saw 2 chapters ago that the first time he stole it was when Esau came in hungry once. But let's see what else happens. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." You see, we know that Rebekah wants to trick Isaac to give Jacob the blessing instead of giving it to Esau. But Esau was hairy since birth. Esau, well, he had no hair whatsoever. So it would have been easy to recognize Esau by feeling his arms because of all the hair he would feel. Um, Now, Jacob, on the other hand, if you would touch his arms, you would not have felt anything. So Jacob is aware that Esau would pick up on this and know that Jacob is trying to trick him, and instead he would end up being cursed. But his mother responds, his mother, and said, verse 13, his mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So Rebecca sends Jacob to father him. She's saying, "Don't worry, you're thinking too much of it. Go do what I told you. Don't worry about that curse. Let it fall on me." Some Hebrew people consider that he probably did let that same curse fall on him based on what happened afterwards. Let's continue. Verse 14. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son, Jacob. So now Rebecca takes Esau's clothing while the food is getting ready. She gets some of Esau's clothing, puts them on Jacob. What's the purpose of all this? We know that Esau would be the one to go out and hunt. They lived in quite an arid land, mostly desert. Imagine going out to the desert, hunting for some animal in the middle of the desert. This could have taken hours. So, of course, Esau would have been sweaty. Let's be honest, that's what this is about. It's about getting Jacob to wear clothes that Esau would have been wearing when he would have been out hunting before, that Esau probably tossed in a laundry pile. And as such, this clothing would have been smelling like Esau's sweat. Let's be realistic. Back in those days, deodorant did not exist yet. So there's no way that Esau would get a roll on, put it under his arms, or spray some deodorant when he was on his way to hunt. No, he would have just tossed whatever he had in his hand and gone out to hunt, come back very sweaty and tired, and then toss it in the laundry, and which obviously Rebecca would have been the one to wash that laundry. Um, so Esau, so why else? Think about it. It says that Esau's clothing was in Rebecca's house. Why else would the grown man's clothing be in Rebecca's house? Because Rebecca did the laundry for Esau and for Jacob and for Abraham as the lady of the house, as it was customary in those days. Those were not days like today where there's such a level of equality that we have now where both men and women can do the laundry. Back in those days, it was a woman's job. Going along with that, we see then that Rebecca takes advantage of this, digs through the laundry that Esau brought to him, puts it on Jacob so that Jacob can smell like Esau. Keep in mind, how do I get all this information? Keep in mind, what did Isaac tell Esau? Isaac told Esau to go out and hunt. So obviously the expectation is that he's going to come back sweaty. And if Jacob was to show up smelling fresh, then it would have been obvious that he did not go out to hunt. They're trying to hide everything possible so that Jacob can come off as if he were Esau. So since obviously after the hunt, Esau's going to come back sweaty, Rebecca wants Jacob to be sweaty and smelling just the way Esau would smell after a hunt. That is the reason why Rebecca puts Esau's clothing on Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with goat skins. Remember, Jacob went out to get goats from the herd that they had. She prepared the meat, put it to cook. Part of this preparation would be taking the skin off. So once the skin is off, she put the skin on Jacob's arm. Why? Well, we remember that Jacob had no fur. Well, Jacob was not hairy. However, Esau was hairy. So with what they were trying to prepare is, let's say Jacob comes close to Isaac, and Isaac feels his arms. Oh, you don't have any skin. Get out of here. You're Jacob. You're trying to trick me. Well, Rebecca did not want that. So after putting on Esau's clothing, then his mother, Rebecca, puts on the very same skin of the goat so that at least when Isaac touches him, he would not feel so plain. He would feel a bit furry, just as his brother Esau. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food that the bread she had made. Now they're ready. He is wearing the goat skins to look furry. He is wearing Esau's clothing to have the sweaty smell of Esau, and thus make it look like he's coming back from the hunt. And he's approaching with the food that Isaac requested. Verse 18. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How do you find it so quickly, my son?" You see, Isaac was also fond of hunting. Isaac knew that to go out, hunt some animal in the middle of the desert would take some time, hours, sometimes even days. However, to go out into your own herd and pick an animal there, kill it, and prepare it as food, well, that did not take as much time. That's why Isaac is surprised that the food is ready so quick. Isaac was expecting it to take longer. Let's continue. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near me so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." We see that since Jacob came back too soon, oh wait, how do you find it so quickly, my son? "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. So Jacob came back ready for any answer to what was asked. "Well, you can't be, so you came back too fast." "Well, God helped me find the praise so much quicker." But Isaac suspects that there is some fraud going on here. You see, first of all, first thing that Isaac finds suspicious is that the food was prepared too quick. So Isaac is thinking it is suspicious that he would be back so soon, even if God would have helped him get the game. So now Isaac is asking Jacob to get closer to be able to test whether or not. He knows Jacob is not furry, but Jacob is very hairy. So he's saying, "Come, let me touch your arms. Let me see if you're hairy or if you're not hairy." Why did he want to do this? Because he recognized that the voice that he is hearing is not Esau's voice. It's like, well, he came back too fast. He does not sound like Esau. He sounds more like Jacob. I think this is Jacob trying to trick me. So he wants to double check by feeling the arms. But Jacob was ready with a goat skin. Jacob, verse 22. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." So he's saying, okay, it sounds like Jacob, but he feels like Esau. He feels kind of thrown off. He did not recognize them, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. So once again, Isaac continues doubting that this is Esau. He's like, two opposite signals. This guy does not sound like Esau. Is he really Esau? And Jacob responds in the affirmative. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." We are talking here about the Hebrew culture. I know that in the Mexican and American culture, a man does not kiss a man, even the father. But in Middle Eastern culture, a kiss in the cheek is very common among men. without implying anything rainbowish, if you know what I mean. So he went, verse 27, and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothing, he blessed him and said. So now we see, after eating, Isaac is still suspicious. Well, he sounds like Jacob, but he feels like Esau. He came back too soon. Did he really go out hunting? I'm going to give him another test. So he has Jacob approach, but now Jacob is smelling the way Esau would normally smell when he comes back from hunting. That's why he says, um, that Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed them and said. So Isaac is smelling all the sweat from somebody who has just come back from hunting. He goes on to say, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. It's kind of strange that Isaac is having such a very poetic feeling about some sweaty clothes. But what he is blessing is the way that it smells like a field that is blessed. Something that has given fruit. Something that has given a result. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's riches, an abundance of grain and new wine. In other words, may God make you prosper. Remember that in this time, wealth was not measured in money or in how many zeros you had in your bank account. Wealth was measured in how much cattle you had. So and also in how much produce your land gave. So he's saying, may your land give a lot. May your animals multiply a lot. May you be prosperous. But no, my brothers and sisters, this has nothing to do with that heresy called the gospel of prosperity. That's not what it's talking about. It is saying that may God look favorably upon whom he thinks is Esau. May nations serve you and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. Now we notice this. Isaac is speaking unto him the same blessing that God gave Abraham and then unto Isaac. Those who curse you will be cursed. Those who bless you will be blessed. Keep in mind the current condition in which things are going on in Israel right now. Keep in mind all these people who are speaking up. If you're speaking up against Israel, what is this standing and saying about you? If you're speaking up in favor of Israel, what is this saying about you? But yet in another, that's why it's saying those who curse Israel, remember Jacob's name is replaced, is changed a few chapters later from Jacob to Israel. And those who curse Israel will be cursed. Saying, be Lord over your brothers. There's a question here. A very interesting thing to observe. Throughout the Bible, we see that Isaac and Rebekah only had two kids. Esau and Jacob. That's it. Yet he's telling Jacob, whom he thinks is Esau, but let's just say he's telling his son that may God give him to rule over his brothers in plural. But he only had one brother. Why is it in plural? Well, in Hebrew, this word is achim, and it means not just brothers as in sharing the same mother. In Hebrew culture, all your relatives are generically called brothers. We saw an example of this when we saw in John chapter 11 and Genesis. We see an example of this back in Genesis chapter 11 as well as Genesis chapter 13, when in Genesis chapter 11, we see that the genealogy tells us that Abraham is Lot's uncle. Yet in chapter 13, they call each other brothers. Why? Because they are family, they are related. So he's saying, may you lord over your brothers. In the correct way to understand this in Hebrew culture is, may you be lord over those who are related to us, over your family, not just a brother, but the other ones. Um, let's remember um, Ishmael, his uncle, and so on. And then we see that he's telling us that those who curse Israel will be cursed, and those who bless Israel be blessed. What do you choose? Verse 30. Let's see, verse 30. Excuse me, I've lost my place. After Isaac finished, blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, my father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. Uh-oh. Jacob had already received the blessing and he's heading out. At that time, Esau comes in from the hunting and starts preparing the food. His father asked him, who are you? I am your son, he answered, your firstborn, Esau. Uh-oh. Now, Jacob is like, if you're Esau, who was this guy? All along, Isaac was suspecting that Jacob was trying to commit fraud. But other than his voice and how quickly he prepared the food, he had nothing else to go on to prove, because all the other tests, how hairy he was, the smell from going out in the hunt, everything else pointed to Esau. So he was like, I don't think this is Esau, but hey, everything else proves it. Isaac trembled violently and said, who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed, he will be blessed. He is trembling violently because he knows he has been tricked. He is angry at Jacob for tricking him. And he is angry at himself because even though he knew better, he still let himself be deceived. When Esau heard his father's word, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me! Me too, my father! He is now throwing a little tantrum like a little kid. But at least he has a good reason for. You see, this blessing was meant for Esau, but Jacob came first and took the blessing. And remember, we're talking about patriarchal culture. If we were talking about modern day times, it would be easy. Okay, I gave you a blessing, and now I can give you the blessing. But that's not how things were going in patriarchal time. In patriarchal time, only one person ever received the blessing, and that would have been the firstborn. And notice the words that Isaac used. Isaac used the words, may the Lord be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. This here, and notice these words. May God give you the heavens dew and earth's riches, abundance of grain and new wine. So he's giving him the blessing over that was pronounced over Jacob, was giving Jacob preference over all the choice first fruits of the harvest. All the best was given up to Jacob. All the prime selection of the harvest was assigned through this blessing to Jacob. All the prime choice, all the bahar. And since Jacob was to receive other bahar, other choice things, Jacob becomes a behor, which for us today is misrepresented as the firstborn. So since all the best is already been assigned to Jacob, Jacob is the behor. Now, Esau cannot be the Behor and receive the prime, the produce that was already assigned to Jacob through this blessing. That's why Esau cannot receive it, although he wants it so desperately. So Esau continues and says, but he said, your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing. In other words, hey kiddo, I'm sorry, but your brother stole your blessing from me. Esau said, isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright and now he's taking my blessing. Then he asked, haven't you reserved the blessing for me? You see, Jacob means to supplant. It means to take over somebody else's place. Now, we see that Jacob, in order to receive this blessing, he supplants Isaac, hence the name Jacob. It's like, well, his name is Jacob. To supplant, of course, it had to be like Hebrew that I was to be supplanted. And notice that the word to supplant is akab. Jacob shows us that it's in the future tense of the verb akab. So the name Jacob, by them giving Jacob the name, Jacob, he will supplant. That's what Jacob means. He will supplant. Without knowing, the moment they gave Jacob that name, it was already providing a prophecy that Jacob was going to supplant his brother Esau. Question here is, how much of this was deceit? How much of this was prophecy? Even though Isaac had chosen to give it to Esau, God had foreordained that it was to fall on Jacob. So unknowingly, Isaac and Rebekah named their son Jacob, which means he will supplant, because prophetically they were pronouncing already that Jacob, the younger, was going to supplant and replace Esau, the older. Then he's saying that this is the second time it happened, making reference to what we saw about the food. Now he takes a blessing. The blessing would have replaced the birthright back to Esau. But when Jacob took the blessing, now Esau has no way of falling back upon that blessing. So he's asking, okay, my blessing to be the Behor, the choice, the firstborn, the prime choice here, and receive the Bahar, the prime choice of the harvest, is gone. But did you reserve anything else for me? Remember, blessings could only be pronounced upon one person, and they were not transferable, and they were not reversible. So Isaac could not take back the blessing even after he knew that he was deceived, because these blessings cannot be taken back. And they cannot be transferred, so he could not transfer Jacob's blessing over to Esau. So Isaac responds to Esau with the following same way in verse 37. I have made him lord over you, and have made all the relatives his relatives his servants. I have sustained him with the grain and new wine. So what can possibly can do for you, my son? He's already taken other bahar, other prime choice, the best of the best. That's already going to him. He's already got other bahar, other prime choice. So he's already become the behor, the firstborn. Even though you were born first, he took the other prime choice, and in Hebrew culture, that's what makes you the firstborn, the behor, having the right to the prime choice. Verse 38. Esau said to his father, You have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. Then Esau wept out loud. He is frustrated. I mean, he went out hunting. And when he finally cooked and got all that stuff, it's for nothing because his brother already took it from him. His father Isaac answered him. Excuse me for a moment. Let's continue. So instead of being able to give Esau the blessing, he pronounces over him the following. Verse 39. His father Isaac answered him, your dwelling will be away from the earth's riches, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck. So the words upon Esau turned out to be more of a prophecy rather than a blessing. We are away from the earth's riches, away from the fertile land. Remember, Esau became the father of the Edomites who lived in the Negev desert. Away from the dew of heaven above. In other words, he was to live in arid land. You will live by the sword and you will serve your brother. Thank you, Mija. So we see then that they're talking about Esau's descendants would be violent. Yet they would be under submission, they would be submitted unto Jacob. It is remember that it is Jacob's descendants who take over Israel. And the land where the children of Esau lived moves on and is trying to be later on becomes Judah and the land of Simeon, whom we're going to find out about later. These two, Judah and Simeon, were the children of Jacob. So Jacob's descendants are ruling over the land they were ruling over the Negev, where Esau's descendants were to live. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your back. Now this becomes prophetic as well, because the descendants of Esau establishes the land of Edom in the Negev desert. And a famous Edomite, because when is King Herod, you see historically when there was a lot of violence in the region, the Herodian dynasty, about roughly 2,000 years after this prophecy was pronounced, one of the descendants of Esau, Herod the Great, we know that Herod the Great was an Idumean. Idumean is the way the Romans refer to the people of Edom, which was established by Esau. So we see that 2,000 years later, 2,000 years after this sad situation for Esau, one of Esau's descendants, Herod the Great, overthrows the Jewish Maccabean dynasty, of course with the help of Rome. And then he sits on the throne. So after being under the rule, after Edom has been under the rule of Israel for at least 2,000 years, now Edom overthrows Israel and sits on the throne of Jerusalem. But when you go verse 41, Esau had a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, The days of the mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. We see now Esau is so angry at Jacob for having stolen the blessing that now he wants to kill his brother. He wants revenge for this. Like he's saying, he's waiting for the days of the mourning of the father. In other words, he wants to kill Jacob, but not while Isaac is still alive. We know in the next chapter that Isaac is still alive at this time. So Esau is saying that when the funeral services are taking place for Isaac, he would take advantage of those funeral um, services as an opportunity to kill Jacob and get even for what's going on. However, Rebekah is afraid of this when she finds out. Verse 42. When Rebekah was told of what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you." Rebekah should have thought things better. Of course, Esau was going to find out what happened. And of course, Esau was going to get angry. The problem was that Rebekah was so obsessed into taking care of Jacob that she did not think about how this would affect the relationship between the two brothers. And now Rebekah, not wanting to lose both Isaac and Jacob on the same day, he sends Jacob away. In essence, he's still losing Jacob. Now, my son, verse 43, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day? So now that she realized that what she did was wrong, she does not want to lose Isaac and Jacob on the same day. But she still loses Jacob. Wanting to preserve Jacob, she lost him. Wanting to preserve Jacob, she advises Jacob to steal the blessing and commit fraud. And then right here, then she destroys that relationship between the two brothers. So at this point, technically, she's already lost Jacob. Because now Esau wishes Jacob dead. But now again, Rebekah wants to preserve Jacob again. So once again, Rebekah doesn't want to lose Jacob. So now she sends him away. In essence, she still loses him. Because now he leaves home at a far distance. Sure, she has hope that he will come back. But nowhere in the Bible do we realize that he comes back to continue seeing Rebekah alive. 46. Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. They are disgusted with the Hittites among whom they live. But if we read previous chapters, we realize that Jacob did have a good relationship with the Hittites. What was it about the Hittites that made them disgusted with the idea of the children marrying a Hittite person? Right here, they use the word Hittite generative as to refer to all the Canaanians. And Canaanite religion had very disgusting practices. One major factor in the Canaanite religion was human sacrifice. You see, these women here, as Canaanites that they worshipped many gods. That's strike number one. The Canaanite women did not believe in Yahweh, the one true God. They had many gods. This was rejected by Isaac and by Rebekah. To make things worse, One of these many gods that they worshipped was Moloch. Moloch was portrayed as an owl with human hands. And here's a kicker: under those hands, there was a grill where they would put coal under the grill, set it at fire. This except especially happened in a place called Tophet. Tophet means drums. You see, when a woman gave birth to her first son, that first son was consecrated to the pagan gods, especially Moloch. And the way they consecrated uh, the son to Moloch was through human sacrifice. They had the custom of offering the first child upon the hands of Moloch, right over the grill. So as soon as the first child was born, they would sacrifice that first child by putting him upon the hands of the statue of Moloch, under which there was a fire. They would roast the baby alive until he became ashes and fell through the fingers of Moloch. This is what Rebecca and Isaac found so disgusting of the way of life of the Canaanites. Humans sacrificed, killing off of an innocent newborn child to please these demons such as Moloch. And that's also the reason why the place was called Tophet, or drums, because obviously the mother would not want to offer up her child like this. Upon hearing the screams of the child, the mother's heart would be moved to rescue the child. So that evil priests of Moloch, they would silence those screams by playing those drums, so that the drums would drown out the screams of the baby. Thus, the mother would not hear it, as a poor child is cremated alive. That's the reason why ancient Israel had to drive out the Canaanites. That is the reason why Abraham and Rebekah hated the idea of Isaac and Jacob marrying Canaanite women. They were not willing to see their grandchildren. If Jacob or Isaac would have married a Canaanite woman, Isaac and Rebekah would have to see their grandchildren being offered up as human sacrifice. And they could not bear the idea of it. This is one of the reasons also why Jacob and his prophetic name Yaakov, he will supplant, had to supplant and take over over Esau's dominion, over Esau's blessing. Because through Esau, through Jacob, the posterity and the promises given to Abraham would be ensured. We know Esau did marry the Canaanites. And that's why Abraham and Rebekah knew what would happen if Jacob married a Canaanite as well. So the blessings that Esau wanted to give to Isaac, Isaac would have destroyed those blessings and turned them into a curse by offering up his children to Moloch. God did not want that. God did not call Abraham out of Ur of the Chaldees and gave a covenant with. God did not establish a covenant with Abraham, only to see Abraham's posterity destroyed by idol worship, only to see that the descendants that God so much promised Abraham would be destroyed through the fire of human sacrifice. So, in order to restore the promise given to Abraham, God had to resolve it in a particular way. So, he acted prophetically through Jacob, he will supplant, by supplanting Esau, who had already fallen victim. Esau had supplanted God's place by marrying Canaanite women, as we will see in the chapters coming up. But God wanted to preserve the inheritance that he was giving Abraham by allowing Jacob to supplant Esau, so that Esau would not supplant the blessings given by God. That is what the wonderful thing about our Lord God. He can turn the biggest and worst things into the most beautiful things. If anything is to be remembered in the Bible, the most despicable things that we might find, God uses them for good. And this is an example of them. Long live Christ the King!